depressing sights when you're driving through England is seeing fields that should be full of crops or livestock full of solar panels. Make sure we're using our reserves in the North Sea and incentivizing companies to do that. We need to make sure we're fracking in parts of the country where there is local support for that taking place. One thing I absolutely don't support is a windfall tax. I think it's a Labour idea. It's all about bashing business, and it sends the wrong message to international investors and to the public.
But then what do the public think about energy giants making £3 billion in profits, while, by the way, they're already £3 billion in debt to them?
Well, first of all, I don't think profit is a dirty word, and the fact it's become a dirty word in our society is a massive problem.
All the vast profits, like BP making £6.9 billion. Do you know how much the shareholders of these energy companies have got in dividends since 2010? £200 billion. £200 billion which could have been used to lower people's bills. £200 billion, by the way, which could have been used to invest in clean energy to make us energy independent so we wouldn't be exposed to these massive global headwinds. The idea the government are on another planet, not another planet, another universe, if they think these energy companies are going to invest these massive profits into, for example, energy independence. 60% of their new profits are going to dividends for their shareholders. It's a complete, I have to say, it's a challenge to people watching this. Have you lost your minds? Look, no, listen to this, listen, this is such an important point. £4,400 energy bills. That isn't extortionate. That isn't simply a rip-off. That is a humanitarian catastrophe. People can't afford to pay that. It's literally impossible. Millions of people will not be able to afford to live in one of the richest countries on the face of the earth. Now, the fact that people are angry about this, fine. They're angry about it. They're yelling at their TVs. They're lying awake at night worrying about it. What on earth does it take in this country for people to take to the streets and actually do something? We can't just sit here while millions of people are driven literally so far below the poverty line that they can no longer afford to even exist. It's ludicrous. What we need to do, obviously, is not just keep doing windfall taxes, by the way, because all that's doing is dealing with the symptoms of privatising an industry which is a natural monopoly, which is obviously one of our most basic needs. So we should bring them under public ownership. Take France at the moment. France have got a nationalised energy system, right? Their energy prices, their bills aren't going up by 400 quid. They're going up by only 4%. Because the government are forcing them because they can to keep people's energy bills down. But let them run for the people of this country instead of shareholders who just want to rip us all off.
Seem to be adamant that nothing can happen until the new Prime Minister comes in, that decisions can't be made until September the 5th.
What a load of bull. That's complete bull. I won't use the final word on the back of it. That is just simply not true. Let's be very plain. In May, when the government was facing political problems due to Boris Johnson, they were planning to make announcements in energy in July and August. That was brought forward in May, and the mechanism for bringing it forward in May is they asked Ofgem to publish forward guidance of what the price cap would be, and they were therefore able to crystallise what was happening, and they made the announcements of the up to £1,200 available for the poorest homes. There is absolutely nothing stopping the government doing it that now, and we have a party in government that controls the majority of the House of Commons. That's how our political system works. The fact that there is internecine warfare between two candidates to lead that party does not stop the government doing anything. Those two candidates could make an agreement of what's going to happen. So the idea that they can't do anything is wrong.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. My name's AJ. I'm here to take you through all of the latest news that's happening around the world, and there is a lot of news. Can't take a break at the moment. Every single day there's something major happening somewhere around the world. Anyway, I've picked a few that's been happening in the last few days. I want to start with Truss. This lady, I basically said that is going to be the next Prime Minister more than 6 months ago. You're welcome to see some of my old videos, and you can see that I predicted she was going to be the next Prime Minister. But it's more than a prediction, to be honest. As you know, there's a certain place that I work, and I hear a lot of rumors behind the scenes, and I hear a lot of people, important people talking behind the scenes, and I'm pretty sure she was going to be the next PM months and months ago. The decision has already been taken, and they're just going along with the process at the moment, but the higher ups have already decided months ago that she's going to be the next PM. However, she's going to be an absolute disaster, as you can see from the clips. She doesn't like solar energy apparently, and her answer to the cost of living crisis is doing nothing. She thinks giving profits to these energy companies who are making 3 billion a month or billions and billions a month, she's happy for them to make profit while the rest of the UK people are suffering. It's an absolute disaster, guys, absolute disaster. Like the guy in the beginning of the clip has said, and I completely agree with him, since 2010 BP and Shell and all these other gas companies have made an average of 200 billion in profit. 200 billion in profit, and most of it's going to shareholders, going as dividends. So these people are making a killing. And do you know who some of these shareholders and dividends people are? These are basically people from all over the world, from America, from France even. France has actually clamped down on all of these major gas and oil companies, and the people in France have only got 4% of gas rises, and this is because they've nationalized but most of it, and they haven't really allowed for people in France to get a major hit. We in UK, we're going to get a big hit of £4,000 to £5,000 in increase in bills, and I can tell you that now, not many people can afford it. It's an absolute disaster. While all of this money, all of these profits are going into shareholders' hands, none of the money is going into investments in clean energy. Well, there is a little bit, but not enough. All of that profit needs to go into clean energy. All of that profit needs to go in alternative energy sources. And also all of that money, all of that profit needs to go into Britain so people pay less. So people don't get a hit when it comes to energy bills and gas bills. You know, this is absolutely ridiculous. Then you have Liz Truss here saying, "Oh, profit is not really a dirty word. We should allow these big companies to make profits." What the hell is she on about? Seriously, it's stuff like that which really makes me angry. And this is why I think Liz Truss is going to be an absolute disaster for this country. And the final clip, basically what they're trying to say is, they cannot make any decision unless they get the new Prime Minister on board, and that's going to be in September. So they cannot make any decisions from now until September. So you have Boris here, who is still on the payroll, by the way. He's still being paid Prime Minister wages. He's on his second holiday in 2 weeks. He's enjoying his life. While everyone else is having the cost of living crisis, while he's having his second holiday in 2 weeks. So he's still being paid, and no, this decision cannot be made until Liz Truss comes in September. Absolutely ridiculous, absolute BS. So let's look at some other topics of the day. UK could face blackouts after drought causes European hydropower output to plummet. So as you know, the UK has been suffering from severe drought at the moment, but not just UK, the rest of the world has as well. Europe has. There's important rivers like the River Rhine in Germany drying up. There's rivers in Italy drying up, but there's also rivers drying up in UK as well. And I went to the local park yesterday, and today I went to Hyde Park as well. All of the grass that used to be green has turned yellow. Literally yellow, because these grass are not getting any water, so they're basically dying. And when the grass turns yellow, the soil becomes eroded. A lot of bad things happen when things like that happen, to be honest. And a lot of rivers around UK, my local park rivers, have literally dried up. All the fish are pretty much dead, so things are not looking good. And you can see here, hydropower, electric power is not looking good in the rest of Europe as well. And UK needs 30 new reservoirs to protect water supply from drought after failing to build one in 31 years. So you can see there's a lot of issues with water companies, and the main problem with UK is always rains. So they've never had a problem with water, to be honest, in UK, and they've been pretty much lazy. The infrastructure is not there in UK, and the infrastructure is not there because, you know, UK has always been a cold country, so the trains, for example, don't have any air conditioning, and so the infrastructure is not really built for hot weather. So when you look at countries like United States, you look at countries like China and India, they build their infrastructure basically that can withstand heat. For example, rail tracks that can withstand high temperatures and low temperatures. In China, because it goes through various different heat zones, it goes from Beijing all the way to Harbin, all the way then to Xinjiang. Obviously there's different sorts of temperatures there, so these train tracks have to withstand hot weather, cold weather. And in UK, nothing has been designed for hot weather, nothing. So the UK will have to spend a lot of money. I'm talking billions and billions money to upgrade the infrastructure. I'm talking about the train tracks, I'm upgrading roads, because these roads are built not for hot weather. These roads are built for cold weather. So UK is going to have a major crisis coming up soon. They're already having a crisis, and also they have not been building reservoirs for the past 31 years because obviously it rains a lot in UK, so they never had to, and now they are realizing that they are running out of water. So absolutely panic going on throughout the United Kingdom. And this is a map showing where most of the problems are in UK, and you can see huge issues, water supplies, there's a lot of leakages, there's billions of tons of water being leaked. Again, they didn't really care about any of that because UK rains all the time, so they've not been saving any of the water. If you look at some of the smartest cities in China, for example, they save a lot of rainwater, they recycle it, so they do a lot of work along that kind of drainage systems and stuff like that. There's none of that in UK, none of that. And again, UK is going to be really suffering over the next few years. They're going to have to spend a lot of money. And this is an example of one of the parks I went to. This is Greenwich Park, and you can see the colour of the grass, and all the parks are this color. All the grass are pretty much dying, and they need water to survive. And again, there's a big hose pipe ban happening as well in UK, so there's a lot of grass that's going to die. And if this grass dies, then the soil is not going to be very good to grow more grass. It's just going to cause more issues. UK energy bills to top 4,200 amid warning. So that's not the only problem the UK has. Obviously the UK energy bills are going to be topping not 4,200, guys. It's going to be 5,000 at least. They never mention the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is going to be over 5,000, and a lot of people are paying that already. People don't understand. I have been saying this for months, how much energy bills are going to rise, and people are kind of sucking it up in UK. Like I said, in UK, people are being kept dumb. The drug laws have been relaxed in UK, so they don't really care about people getting drugged up and going weed or cocaine or whatever. Anything to keep the population dumb. They feed them on these ridiculous reality TV shows to keep them dumb as well, or social media to keep people dumb. Nobody really understands what's going on around the world in UK. People are drinking, going to the pub, sow their sorrows. The same thing is happening to the United States, and it really needs to stop. People need to stand up and realize what's going on around the world and do something about it, because right now the government is just taking people for granted, taking advantage, and people, the middle class, are the suckers at the moment, and a lot of these middle class people are just going to turn into poverty. You can see here, UK economy shrank in the second quarter according to the poll of economists. So according to the word recession, when your economy shrinks in 2 quarters, normally this means it's recession. So I don't know why they don't say we are officially in recession. Maybe the government is telling these papers not to mention it, not to panic anyone. But we are in recession, guys. You know, the inflation is going through the roof. This is what you call a stagflation, by the way. Stagflation is when you have recession plus you have, you know, uncontrollable inflation happening at the same time. So this is the worst case scenario when it comes to recession. When you are in recession, people's money flow gets reduced. Unfortunately, there's a huge inflation as well. So you know, that's kind of a double-pronged attack, and it's just getting worse and worse in UK. Absolutely worse. UK's energy crisis response could include winter power cuts, and again, this has been reported on many papers, but people are ignoring it. People think, oh, we've never had any winter power cuts in UK, I'm sure they'll be fine. You know, once these winter power cuts starts happening all throughout UK, because since I've lived in UK all of my life, we've never had any power cuts. But once these power cuts starts coming into force, I think it will wake a lot of people up, thinking, oh my god, what the hell is happening around the world? This is not good. So let's go back to Russia. Russia now controls at least 12.4 trillion worth of Ukraine's energy, metal and mineral deposits. I made a video about this a few months ago, how Russia is basically controlling a lot of mineral deposits, a lot of gas and oil deposits, a lot of deposits around the Donbass area, or mainly around the east of Ukraine and south of Ukraine, and they have most of the treasures. And now the papers are picking up on it, and I've basically reported on all of this, and it's right. You know, Russia now controls most of the important mineral deposits of Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to be left as a rump steak. You know, the west of Ukraine doesn't really have much mineral deposits. Well, I'm talking about mineral, you know, gas, oil, minerals, agriculture. You know, most of the important stuff is on the east and on the south, and things are not looking good for Ukraine, and they are spending a lot of money, military money, and the US and the West will want that money back. But how is Ukraine going to pay? How is Ukraine going to pay when they become a rump steak version of Ukraine, making no money whatsoever? Most of the people have left the country as refugees. There was a report coming out saying over 100,000 Ukrainians have died in this war. Military guys, not just dead, but maybe injured as well, basically taken out. So if you're injured, if you got a leg blown off or your hand blown off, you're pretty much more than useless to society. You're not going to work in a normal job, are you? So, you know, whether you're dead or whether you're injured, it's pretty much the same thing. You're basically taken out, and things are not looking good for Ukraine's future. And this guy Zelensky has recently come out and said that only way Ukraine will stop this war is if they take back Crimea. I mean, highly unlikely, guys, highly unlikely that's going to happen. They were talking about an attack on Kherson, which has never happened as well. Day by day, Russia is taking more and more territory. And, you know, the US is using this as a proxy war. Everyone knows that. And when the US says stop, that's when the war will stop. When the US and the West says, you know what, we've had enough, let's stop this war. But right now, it serves the US interest. They're fighting Russia to the last Ukrainian, and there's no Americans' lives being lost unless you're a mercenary. So it serves their interest, and they're not going to stop. You know, they will try and drag it out as long as possible, try and bleed out Russia as long as possible. So that's not going to happen whatsoever. The only people that's suffering is Ukraine itself, its people, and yeah, you just gotta have to feel sorry for them, to be honest. I want to talk a bit about South Korea, actually. So a lot of people don't really realize that there has been some talks going on between South Korea and China recently. So the new South Korean president has been very hawkish towards China. Since he came into power, he's been very much friendly towards the United States and not so friendly towards China. So the latest argument that they are having now with China is because they want to deploy some Thaad missile systems. And these Thaad missile systems are a big no-no for China, because last time they got deployed in South Korea there was a huge trade embargo. China kicked out Lotte. Lotte was a major company in South Korea. They kicked out Lotte out of China because Lotte provided land for these Thaad missile systems to be placed in, and because of that they kicked out the company Lotte out of China, and there was other trade embargoes as well. So the last South Korean Prime Minister basically said that number one, South Korea wouldn't deploy any more Thaad systems in the future, wouldn't participate in a US missile defense network, and 3, wouldn't strike a trilateral military alliance with the United States and Japan. However, all 3 promises have been broken. They've been thrown out the window by the new South Korean leader. So again, he is very much an anti-Chinese hawk. He's very much going towards the United States more than China, and things are not looking good in terms of Chinese and South Korean relations. And seems like, you know, South Korea is heading towards Japan and Australia, and if there is a war against China in the future, which looks like there will be, you know, America is going to be using South Korean troops, is going to be using Japanese troops, is going to be using Australian troops, and they're going to fight this proxy war with every single last South Korean, every single last Japanese, and every single last Australian, while America is back, you know, doing pot shots from the back, from the distance. So you just got to feel sorry for all of these countries that are completely subservient to the United States. They just don't know that the United States is just using them and their people as pawns in the ultimate, you know, power struggle with China. And I just hope that these leaders will grow a pair of backbone and just realize what America is and what they're doing to all of these countries. The next thing I was going to talk about is India, and Taiwan basically has been thanking India because India has not been reiterating China's One China policy, and India has not been doing that. So China is not very happy with India at the moment, and Taiwan is basically sending thanks to India for that. But I just want to say one thing: isn't Kashmir what India is doing to Kashmir same as very similar to the Taiwan situation? You got Kashmiris who want independence, and India is not going to allow it, and they are basically blockaded Kashmir, and you know, there's a lot of human rights abuses going on there. So I just don't understand the double standards in India when it comes to Taiwan. I just don't understand it at all. And then you got these articles such as US fumes over India's role in transporting banned Russian oil. So on one hand they are using India to fight China, and on the other hand they are bashing India when it comes to Russian oil and gas. And I just think India needs to, you know, basically focus, you know, stop playing cricket on both sides. Basically, you know, you can't bat on both sides of the team. You got to bat on one side. You got to choose a side, and it looks like India has chosen America. But when you choose a country like America to be in your side, and this is what happens, they try and control you. I mean, you lose your sovereignty as a nation, and this is what's happening, unfortunately. And I just hope India kind of wakes up to the fact and starts making peace with China, because you know, You know, you look at Russia and China, you know, they've had a lot of issues with borders and stuff like that, but they've made peace. They've resolved all the border issues, and I'm sure India can do the same with China. And if they did, imagine how powerful that corner of the world would be with Russia, China and India. And I just hope India sees sense and starts making peace with China. And if they don't, things are just going to escalate in the region, and things just going to get worse, unfortunately. I want to also talk about Salman Rushdie. Obviously Salman Rushdie got stabbed a few days ago, and you know, I'm not condoning this kind of behavior, but I'm just condoning kind of the West behavior in regards to their treatment of Salman Rushdie. Here you have Salman Rushdie, who basically has insulted the Muslim world, and they call it, you know, freedom of expression. They call it freedom, you know, they call it, you know, basically freedom of rights. You're basically allowed to say whatever you want and blah blah blah. And why is it Salman Rushdie is a hero, and you know, obviously the Queen has given them knighthood? Why is he a hero when he's like saying whatever he wants and insulting the Muslim world? But why can't people like Julian Assange say what they want and tell the truth about Iraq? Why can't, you know, YouTubers and people say the truth about what's happening in Ukraine? Why are they getting demonetized? Why are Russians, you know, ordinary Russians being kicked out of Europe for being Russian? I mean, it's just, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on in the world right now, a lot of double standards. So you got one guy here who's allowed to insult the Muslim world, get away with, you know, causing a lot of hate and violence that came about from his book. But while other people are not allowed to say what they want when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to China, these people are being silenced, these people are being put in jail, these people are being demonetized. You know, it just doesn't seem fair to me. It seems absolutely ridiculous. So even after all of the issues that's happened with Pelosi with regards to China and Taiwan, the US has sent a congressional delegation in Taiwan. This happened today, and again the Chinese are not very happy. And the US has basically said that they are going to produce a roadmap for trade deals with the Taiwan island, the trade that Taiwan is losing with China. US is going to basically going to come in and replace all of that. So I just want to say a couple of things. You know, Taiwan's trade with China is massive, and it's massive because you just have to look at the geography. It's only 100 miles away from the Chinese mainland, so you can imagine Taiwan's main trade is going to be with China. And I can understand this because I live in UK, and UK's main trade was with Europe before Brexit happened, obviously. So that's why I don't understand why people voted for Brexit, because you have, you know, Europe, which is your closest and biggest trade partner. Why would you cut links with Europe? I just didn't get it. It's the same with Taiwan. Taiwan's biggest trade partner is China, and you just have to look at the geography. It's only, you know, China's only 100 miles away, so obviously it becomes easier to trade with China. It becomes easy because transport is very cheap. Ships only have to travel 100 miles away, as opposed to thousands of miles away to the United States, for example. And with current oil and gas prices, it doesn't make any trading sense. It doesn't make any sense why you should, you know, basically trade hundreds and thousands of miles away from your borders, and the costs just become too expensive, and it's just not worth trading at all. And the same thing is happening to UK. UK has got trade deals with Japan, Australia apparently, but nobody's trading from Australia, nobody's trading from Japan, because look at the costs of trading from Japan to Australia. You know, it's just doesn't make any sense in an economic point of view, in a business point of view, because somebody's going to have to pay for all of these oil and gas prices, shipping costs exactly, and it just doesn't make any sense. That's why Britain is suffering right now. That's why they're in recession, because there's no trade going on in Europe, there's no trade going on with the rest of the world because of the high oil and gas prices. So Britain is pretty much screwed. Same way Taiwan is pretty much screwed. If America thinks they can trade with Taiwan more than they can trade with China, they're living in cloud cuckoo land. It's just not possible, guys. It's absolutely ridiculous if you think about it. So finally, I just want to say Pelosi's visit was a wake-up call for China. Appeasing the US will never work. So I basically discussed this in my last video. The US has been very much admired by the Chinese over the years. You know, before Trump came in with his trade war, and I guess Obama started this pivot to Asia thing. Like, he started there, but before that, a lot of Chinese loved capitalism. They loved the US way of life. They loved Hollywood movies. They loved American culture before all of that. And since then, with all of these anti-Chinese rhetoric going on, with Trump's, you know, Wuhan flu references and things like that, you know, Chinese have literally have fallen out of favor from you know, in terms of the US, and the Chinese have basically have had enough of pleasing the US. And there's a lot of companies who are now 4 or 5 companies who have pulled out of America now. CATL, which provides new energy vehicles, batteries, they've pulled out of investment there, and many other major Chinese companies are pulling out of America because they know that there is eventually going to be a war over Taiwan in the Taiwanese Strait, and these companies will be at huge risk. So there's a lot of companies which are pulling out, and the Chinese have realized that the US is pushing for war in the Taiwanese Strait, and they will never allow peaceful reunification. So the Chinese are going to be ramping up their military over the next few years. They will be ramping up their economic stuff. So they'll be pulling out a lot of investments from the USA. They'll be pulling out funds from the central bank, US dollars. They'll be finding ways to get rid of the US dollars, and they'll be doing that very, very fast and very soon. And you know, the Chinese have now realized that US is their adversary, and they'll never allow peaceful reunification. So the Chinese are gonna do whatever they can to prepare for war, to prepare for forced reunification if they need it. You know, obviously they don't want that, but they will push for peaceful reunification, but they know that that's not going to happen. So I have discussed this in more detail, so there's more detail in my previous video, the 10 consequences of, you know, America's actions against Taiwan. You're welcome to read that, which will kind of give you more information about that. So everyone's heard about Trump's Florida mansion, which got raided by the FBI, and you know that the deep state is doing everything they can to stop Trump becoming the next president of the United States, and they're doing everything they can now before the midterms, and they know they're going to lose if Trump basically decides he wants to become the next president. They will definitely lose to him, so they're doing everything they can to stop him basically coming into power. However, I don't think Trump is the danger man here. The danger man here is Mike Pompeo, and you can see Mike Pompeo's rhetoric ever since he was a right-hand man of Trump back in the day. He's a very, very dangerous man right now, and if he comes into power, if Trump cannot come into power, Mike Pompeo definitely would. And there's a lot of Republicans who have said that if Trump cannot stand in the elections, then they will basically vote for Mike Pompeo. You know, a lot of people like Mike Pompeo, and he says all the right things. Trump has got his backing. They basically will back each other. So I don't think Trump is a danger here. I think Mike Pompeo is a real hawkish president, and if he does come into power, he will do some steps push for Taiwanese separatists, Taiwanese independence. He will basically push for steps for that. That would be his first job, and he will probably cause a war in the Taiwanese Strait. And I think Mike Pompeo is definitely a danger man here, and people underestimate Mike Pompeo. And if he comes into power, then this could cause severe consequences in around the United States, and he would be much worse than Biden, unfortunately. That's my thoughts anyway. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and you can join my Patreons, or you can join my locals, or you can buy me a coffee if you like the video and you want to support the channel. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you soon.